Hello, and welcome back to Hellavy. I'm your host Joe, and we're continuing with our Let's Read of DC's 52, issue number 5, where we add yet more characters to the mix. Over a month in, and we're still getting new plot threads dangle in front of us. Never a dull moment. Week 5, Day 1. A woman is taking a banner down from the front of her house that reads, "Welcome home, heroes." Her daughter approaches and asks, "Daddy's not coming home from space, is he?" "It's been a whole month," she responds. She's recently been told she's in denial by some of her neighbors, and it seems like it's finally sunk in. She spots a bright green light in the sky, fast approaching the house, and tells her daughter, "Maybe you should go inside now, Maxine." The green light is Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern of Earth. He addresses her as Ellen Baker. This is Animal Man's wife. "I wondered when one of you guys would show up. Is this about my husband?" Alan tells her Animal Man went missing in action in space, and that his bravery was exceptional. "Yeah, that sounds like Buddy. Missing, huh? So there's still hope." With that, she unfurls the banner and readies herself to hang it back up. This isn't the first time her husband's gone missing, and it probably won't be the last. Dude's a modern-day Odysseus. I feel obliged to point out, Alan Scott's got an eye patch on under his mask. Wait, why does he even bother with a mask if he's going to fly up to people and give them his name? Superheroes, right? Meanwhile, in Metropolis, there's one news story on every television in the city. Lex Luthor has developed the technology to implant a metagene in everyone, effectively granting everyone superpowers. Anything you forgot to tell me, partner? We get a few reaction panels. Booster is understandably miffed about not knowing about this ahead of time. What's the point of having a time-traveling encyclopedia as a sidekick if he can't tell you about big shit like this? Montoya is banged up, arm in a sling and such, and gives the television in a storefront a bit of a scowl. Clark Kent and Lois Lane share a look of concern. Some other people go about their business, and is that Jimmy Olsen? I don't know. I don't want to just label every ginger in a green suit Jimmy Olsen, right? Lex Luthor promises us that the age of the super citizen is upon us, and that we no longer need heroes like Superman to look after us. And remember, everyone trusts former President Lex Luthor, and doesn't think he was a villain because he was able to blame all that evil he did on an evil him from an alternate reality. And people fell for that. Steel gets a call. Seems he's needed at a hospital that's treating the heroes who came back from space on the Zeta Beam in issue 4. And hey, he's got the metal suit back on. Heck of a turnaround on that decision, right? He arrives at the hospital, and Alan Scott introduces him to Dr. Mid-Nite. That's Mid-Nite, not midnight like the time of day. I don't know if he's sponsored by the sleep aid or what, but that's how he spells it. Steel wants to know what happened to Hawkgirl. She's 20 feet tall now, and that's weird. Alan tells him there was a teleporter accident, and then shows him Cyborg and Firestorm, fused together. They've got them in chronal stasis while they try to figure out how to separate their nervous systems, which is kinda terrifying. Alan tells him that the Zeta Beam they were traveling in with Adam Strange was refracted somehow, and everyone got all fucked up. Steel asks, "How can I help?" and then notices someone in the bed next to him. Mal Duncan from the Teen Titans. What was he doing in space? Whose idea was that? He barely has any superpowers from what I know. What's that thing in his chest? Turns out in the accident a piece of the red tornado got lodged in his chest, and they can't remove it without also taking his lungs, so that's clearly an issue. That's actually why they called Steel. A while back he had to rebuild his hand using artificial flesh. Steel's solution for that, pseudocytes, will also work for Mal. Dr. Mid-Nite asks why he's wearing the suit. He thought he was hanging that up. I guess I figured it would inspire more confidence. Yeah, good cover story, Steel. Alan fills us in on what happened to them in space. He explains that he got off easy. He only lost an eye. Well, technically 2 eyes. The one eye he has now, that's not even his, which is weird. There was no sound, probably because they were in space, but we had telepathic contact. The heroes had to repair a rift in space that was over 95 million miles wide, and the resulting energy wave warped reality around them. Time sped up and rewound over and over. Alan's not even sure how many times he's lived through it. Adam Strange asked Mal to open a portal to Ran so that they could hop on a Zeta Beam and get out. Mal has a horn that opens portals. It's literally his only power, which is probably why Steel took an issue with him being there in the first place. The Zeta Beam came through the portal, but was split when it did. Like a ray of light sent through a prism, One ray hit Cyborg and Firestorm and fused them together. Another hit Hawkgirl and Bumblebee. One sent Supergirl somewhere, and then Mal Duncan's blood froze as the red tornado exploded. Then some shrapnel took out Alan Scott's eyes, and there was darkness and silence until they arrived home. Adam Strange, Animal Man, and Starfire are all unaccounted for. He thinks they were probably ripped apart like the red tornado was. Then Mal goes into cardiac arrest, and the scene shifts. Gotham City, Renee Montoya's apartment specifically. Her old police captain is swinging by to check on her. She checked in on the place on Kane Street for her, and everything looks squeaky clean. The only reason she thinks anything happened at all is because of Montoya's injuries. Renee is withholding information. Didn't even tell her about the question. You're not licensed, you're not a PI, you don't get their privilege of confidentiality. Renee suggests maybe the captain should recommend her to the board for licensing. That doesn't go over well. She walks out and tells Renee to take care of herself. Renee waits until she's alone and brandishes her fancy new ray gun at the empty room and says, "Don't worry about that." Maybe it's just me, but I always think it's a little bit amusing when they wait until the room's empty for their witty one-liner. Then we're back at the hospital. Alan and Doc Mid-Nite are trying to get Mal breathing again with CPR. I suppose they can't exactly use a defibrillator on account of the big metal subwoofer embedded in his chest. Mid-Nite yells, "Where's my team?" And from the looks of things, they're all outside dealing with Hawkgirl. Steel tells them to stand back and fires a beam at Mal that seems to get him going again. It also starts up the speaker in his chest, which shouts, "It's coming! 52! 52!" loudly enough that it shatters every window in the hospital. Alan recognizes that as the red tornado's last words before exploding. "What's coming?" Steel asks. What did he see? Then it's day 7. Wait, did that all happen on one day? Yeah, that was all one day. Well, day 7. It's some alien world, and now we know where Animal Man and Starfire landed. They've both been bathing, because it's good to stay clean. Just ask Ralph. A nice relaxing bath is good now and then. And they definitely need to relax after what they've been through. Animal Man is wondering if they won back home, if they managed to stop the crisis, and if there's a search party coming. You know, what if my wife and kids think I'm dead, and they throw up my stuff? Only an Earthman could look so uncomfortable in paradise. We survived. We crash-landed in heaven. Can't you make the best of it, Buddy Baker? He might be uncomfortable because of the nudity. I'm just guessing. Starfire, though, she doesn't care. She's got nothing to hide. She picks some fruit off a tree and digs in, telling Buddy about how similar this world was to a story about heaven that her people have. He's not having any of it, though. It's okay for you. You guys live in space. This is the first time he's been stranded on an alien world, and it's wrinkling his brain. It's not the first time he's been in space, mind you. I mean, he's got aliens all throughout his backstory. He got his powers from aliens beaming him up and screwing with him. They just, didn't drop him off on another planet and fuck off for a bit. Starfire correctly points out that they have no idea where they are, so maybe they aren't even that far from Earth. They won't know until Adam Strange can sort things out. I got us into this, and I promised I'd get us out, didn't I? None of that's changed, Princess. Eyes or no eyes. I can guess where one of his eyes went. Buddy's doubtful he'll even be able to get that ship he's tinkering with working at all, much less get them out of there. If you think you can fondle that spaceship back to life, be my guest. Buddy's got bigger concerns. He's been reaching out into the world's morphogenic field for animals to draw abilities from, and there's something there. They aren't alone. He wants out before the sun goes down, and I really can't say I blame him. Then it's History of the DCU with Donna Troy and Sphere starring Dustin Hoffman. As mentioned before, when Supergirl died, everyone was real sad. As Donna puts it, when she died, we lost all hope. After that, the Anti-Monitor fired up a giant antimatter cannon that the Guardians built for him. The Flash, Barry Allen, ran around the thing so fast that it shot itself. That makes sense, right? Running that fast killed Barry, but not before he sent images of himself throughout time to warn others about what was going on. That only took out the cannon, though. The Anti-Monitor himself was still there. A group of heroes traveled to before the universe existed to stop him from altering the creation of the universe. He almost pulled off his plan, but then the Spectre showed up and stopped him. All realities collapsed into one, and Superman from Earth 2 punched him real hard, and then that was it. Honestly, Superman punching the threat should really be the go-to solution. It always seems to work. He looks at it grimly, says something to the effect of, "This ends now," and punches it and wins. But no, we gotta draw it out. Then that Superman, his Lois Lane, Superboy from Earth Prime, and Alexander Luthor all retired to a little Boca Raton outside of reality to live happily ever after. Everyone forgot about the crisis, except for one of the worst named villains in DC history, the Psycho Pirate. When I think pirate, I immediately think of jesters. What even is this guy? He went nuts over remembering the trillions who died in the crisis, though with a name like Psycho Pirate I question how sane he was to begin with. Dawn is fine, but he went nuts. So we finally found out what happened in space, and we've been introduced to yet another group of characters to follow. Animal Man, Adam Strange, and Starfire. We all know Starfire, of course. She was on Teen Titans. She was fantastic. Tamaranian Princess, Starbolts, super strength, flying, poor grasp of personal space and prudence, all that fun stuff. A little well less known is Animal Man, who saw a ton of great development under Grant Morrison, who you may recognize as one of the writers on this series, if you looked at the cover at all. He was kidnapped by aliens who gave him the power to tap into a planet's morphogenic field, which is sort of a connecting network of all animals on Earth. It's also known in some circles as the Red, which is like the animal version of the plant thing Swamp Thing taps into to do plant stuff. They call that the Green. Basically, he can mimic animals, jumping like a grasshopper, being tough like a rhino, flying like a bird, animal stuff. And virtually unknown outside of DC fans is Adam Strange. He's a man who traveled to the faraway planet of Rann after being abducted via Zeta Beam. He's since become sort of the de facto ruler of the planet, and is one of the go-to guys for space stuff. He's kind of like DC's Star-Lord, and just like all things DC, he's less fun and more uptight. We've also gotten a look at the survivors who made it back to Earth in one piece, more or less. I'm always a fan of giving Alan Scott some attention, so that's fun. And as much as I ragged on Dr. Mid-Nite's name, I like him too. I even have one of his action figures. He has even fewer powers than Mal Duncan, though. His only real power is to see in the dark. He cannot, however, see in the light, so he wears special sunglasses that makes it look like it's dark so he can see. 'Cause that makes sense, right? He carries some bombs that make it dark too, so that way he can effectively turn off the lights and punch someone in the dark. It's neat, but kind of impractical because he only punches as hard as a regular dude. Steel is brushing aside his clear mental break to keep working. Don't bury yourself in your work. Address your issues. Dude, you should know better. How long until this blows up in his face? Lex Luthor's figured out a way to give people superpowers, or at least he claims so. So Lex convinced the world that he wasn't the evil Luthor by producing a version of himself from an alternate Earth. Here's the weird thing. This isn't really the first time he's done that sort of thing. He cloned himself at one point and transferred his consciousness to the new body and took over the old evil Lex Luthor's business as his son, Lex Luthor Jr. He now looks exactly like Lex Luthor Sr., who is dead, and people fell for that. And that's week 5. Tune in next time for international politics, science, and temporal theory. Once again, this is Hella V. I'm your host Joe, and thank you for watching.